Is your manifestation on its way? Waiting for something you badly want to show up can be the hardest and most frustrating aspect of manifesting, so it's natural to look for signs that it's on its way. Some people look for signs like angel numbers or wait for tests from the universe. I never found anything reliable about those, but there are real, actual signs that are simple and easy to identify that will let you know your manifestation is close. No superstition or gimmicks. For real. In the next 10 minutes or so, I'll reveal what they are and how you can easily identify them. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Trevor, and at one time in my life, around 30 years ago, I would have given anything to have some certainty that things were going to change for the better. I went through a horrible marriage breakup, fell so deep into debt that I thought I was going to lose my house. I felt I was failing at life. The law of attraction became a lifeline for me, but it seemed so unreliable. And when my teachers began telling me to look for signs like angel numbers, I wanted to believe in them so badly, but honestly, I struggled to know the difference between that kind of belief and the tooth fairy being real. I might look at a digital clock and notice the time was exactly 11:11, but then it's going to say that twice a day anyway, so my mind would just remind me it was probably a coincidence. A minute later it would say 11:12, so what was the point? Over time, I found that not only do the things you want to manifest always come into being, but you don't need those signs. In fact, looking for them is kind of desperate, and all that serves to do is to remind you that whatever you want isn't here yet, and you end up feeling worse than before. What's the point? The real signs show up like the manifestation itself, effortlessly. In fact, all manifesting is effortless. And if you'd like to read about how that works, then please click on the link at the top of the description below this video and help yourself to a copy of my free ebook, Let's Manifest a Ferrari. The first real sign that your manifestation is close is when you stop stressing about it. Now, this might sound counterintuitive. You might be thinking, but how can I stop stressing when I really need this thing to happen? Let me explain what I mean. When I stopped forcing things with my house situation, that's when the solution appeared. It wasn't about giving up. It was about releasing that death grip of worry and control. Here's why this works. When we're stressed and trying to force things, we're actually getting in our own way. You see, there is no external force out there granting or withholding wishes. Instead, it's like water flowing. It will always find its path around obstacles naturally and effortlessly. But imagine if water tried to figure out which way it should flow, or tried to force itself through a solid wall instead of finding the natural opening. That's what we do when we stress and force things. When I was worried about my house, I was looking only for the solutions I thought would work, like trying to squeeze more money from my existing income or hoping for a miracle raise at work. But when I stopped forcing it, a completely unexpected solution, a lodger I met through a series of coincidences, appeared naturally. You see, manifestation is always effortless, just like I explain in my free ebook, Let's Manifest a Ferrari. If you haven't grabbed a copy yet, the link is in the description below. In it, I go into much more detail about how this effortless process works. But for now, let's focus on how you can recognize this first sign. And here's where it gets interesting. Because I'm not talking about the relief you feel when you know for certain everything's going to be all right. That's easy. Anyone can feel relaxed when they've got a guarantee. I'm talking about something much more subtle and, honestly, more powerful. It's a kind of trust that shows up before you have any logical reason to trust. Remember, with my house situation, I hadn't found a solution yet. Nothing in my bank account had changed. But there was this quiet feeling, this sense of it's going to be okay, that didn't come from my circumstances. I didn't know then where that came from, and I could definitely tune it out and let all my doubts and fears hold sway. Yet it was always there in the background, like the soothing music they might play at the dentist's. You don't notice it, but it helps to relax you a bit. Nowadays, I can tune into it better because I assume it comes from higher intelligence, where there's always an answer. It's not listening with your ears. It's more a tuning out of all the noisy, fearful thoughts. To give it a name, it's trust. You might be wondering, but how can I trust when everything's still uncertain? Here's the thing. This trust isn't something you manufacture. It's more like you're discovering you're already being supported, like noticing that you've been breathing all this time without having to remember to do it. You'll recognize this when you catch yourself feeling oddly peaceful about your situation, even though nothing has visibly changed yet. Sometimes you'll just notice the difference between forcing yourself to trust and simply finding trust is there. Your usual worrying thoughts will still come, but they don't hook you like they used to, and maybe they're not so frequent. You'll find yourself responding to concerns with, let's see what happens, instead of your usual anxiety. And perhaps, most importantly of all, you instinctively stop trying to control every detail of how it must work out. This isn't about positive thinking or convincing yourself everything will be fine. It's more like discovering that you're already fine, regardless of what happens. And paradoxically, that's when things start to shift. The second real sign that your manifestation is getting closer is when you start allowing new thoughts and possibilities to exist without immediately shooting them down. You know how we usually have this internal editor, this voice that quickly dismisses ideas? It says things like, that would never work, or that's not realistic, or I couldn't possibly do that. We filter out possibilities before they even have a chance to breathe. Let me share a powerful example from my own life. A few months after my marriage broke apart, I found a new girlfriend, and when she broke up with me, although she did it in the nicest possible way, I hit the lowest point in my life. I couldn't stop crying, and I had to take some time off work. My brother and his family kindly took me in for a few days, so I wasn't all by myself. Near where they lived was a bookshop that sold a lot of spiritual and esoteric books, which I'd visited often before I moved away to another part of the country. On my first day in my brother's home, they offered to take me out for the day, but I knew I needed to heal, and that would have been a nice distraction, but something told me to visit that bookshop. I told my brother, I just know there's something there I need. I don't even know what I meant by that. I knew no such thing, but it was a strong impulse, and I felt compelled to follow it. So that's where we went. Now, I'd been a long-time consumer of self-help books, so when I got to the bookshop, at first it seemed that I'd already read most of the books in the sections that appealed to me. But then I spotted a book with a white spine that I'd never seen before. It was called Living Magically, and the author was a lady called Jill Edwards. I opened the book at random, and the words that jumped out at me, as I remember them, although I don't actually think the following quote is in the book, said, "We create our reality with our thoughts and beliefs." That was my introduction to the law of attraction. Not only did I read that book, but I later met Jill, and she became my metaphysics teacher long before the world had heard of the law of attraction through The Secret. I knew to listen to that thought, and had I ignored it and gone for a walk with my brother and his family, my life and understanding of how our experience of reality is created would have been totally different, and my healing from the emotional blows I'd suffered may have taken a lot longer. See how this works? At my lowest point, when most people would have accepted the logical suggestion to go out for a distraction, I allowed myself to listen to that quiet thought about the bookshop. I could have easily dismissed it, after all. I'd read most of the self-help books already, right? but something in me was open to possibilities, and that openness led me to exactly what I needed. Not just a book, but a whole new understanding of life and reality. This openness to new possibilities isn't about being unrealistic or fantasizing. It's about removing the artificial limitations we place on how things must happen. When we stop insisting that our manifestation has to come in a specific way, we open ourselves to countless possibilities we couldn't have planned for. And speaking of understanding how reality creation works, if you haven't already downloaded my free ebook, Let's Manifest a Ferrari, you'll find it explains these principles in much more detail. The link is in the description below. The third sign that your manifestation is close is when you find yourself taking actions without overthinking them. This isn't about forcing yourself to act as if or pushing yourself to do things. It's quite the opposite. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and I need to point out something really important. As soon as I tell you to notice when your actions feel natural and unforced, there's a risk you'll start analyzing every action, asking yourself, wait, does this feel natural? Am I forcing this? It's like when someone points out how you're breathing and suddenly your natural breathing becomes awkward because you're thinking about it. Or try walking while consciously thinking about each step. Now left foot, now right foot, and watch how quickly you lose your natural rhythm. Let me share something from my own experience that perfectly illustrates this. I play guitar, and there was a time when learning to improvise was all about memorizing scales and patterns. It was laborious, deliberate, and honestly not particularly musical. But now, when I'm playing, my fingers just find the notes. No thinking involved. Pure improvisation, even though it's based on sound musical principles like the key and the rhythm of the song. I can be in that zone where the music just flows through me, sometimes surprising even myself, and I'm the one playing it. That's exactly how life works when manifestation is close. You can actually improvise your life in the same way. Yes, there are underlying principles at work, just like there are musical rules. But when you're in the flow, you're not thinking about them, you're just living them. This is the paradox of conscious manifestation. The moment we try to force ourselves to be unforced, we've already lost the plot. So instead of monitoring your actions, simply notice after the fact. Look back at the end of your day and observe, oh, I just naturally did that without making a big deal about it. The real key is to catch yourself when you're already in the flow rather than trying to manufacture the flow. It's like noticing you've been dancing without thinking about the steps rather than trying to dance by counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. When these natural actions are happening, they feel as effortless as reaching for a glass of water when you're thirsty. You don't analyze whether you should get the water, you just do it because it feels right. So there you have them. 3 real signs that your manifestation is closer than you think. And notice how none of them involve looking for external validation like angel numbers or universal tests. They're all about noticing what's already happening naturally within you. When you stop stressing and forcing, like water finding its natural path. When you allow new possibilities to enter your mind without dismissing them, like I did with that life-changing visit to the bookshop. And when your actions flow naturally, like fingers finding the right notes in a musical improvisation. Remember, the moment you try to force any of these signs, you're moving away from the natural flow of manifestation. It's like trying to force yourself to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more awake you become. If you'd like to dive deeper into this effortless approach to manifestation, make sure you grab your copy of my free ebook, Let's Manifest a Ferrari. The link is in the description below. In it, I explain more about how this natural process works and why forcing never gets the results you want. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe to join me for more practical, no-nonsense insights about manifestation. leave a comment below sharing which of these signs you've experienced in your own life. I'd love to hear your stories. Thank you for watching. And this is me, Trevor, reminding you that manifestation is always effortless when you get out of your own way. I'll see you very soon in another video.